Those who know him well say he wasn't the same man he was 4 years ago. But I believe that he is showing signs of dementia.
Did you express the same public warnings about Joe Biden?
If you have two brain cells to rub together, you had to know this question was coming. Like, I'd be kind of embarrassed to show my like this on TV. Guys, up first, we're going to check in with the latest viral moment from Piers Morgan Uncensored, or as he himself embraces it, kind of the Jerry Springer of political TV. But some of his interviews are a little more serious, and some of them are like chaotic panels. And I've actually appeared on it once myself. And listen, I respect the game. I respect the hustle. He knows what he's doing, and he puts together a broadcast that, as tough as it can be to listen to at times, you also can't help but click on it sometimes. And one moment that's going viral is when Piers just interviewed a psychologist, and as it will be important to note, that's not a medical doctor. That's not the same thing as a psychiatrist who went to medical school, but it is a psychologist and the founder of something called Duty to Warn, Dr. John Gartner. Now, Dr. Gartner has gone viral recently because he has been claiming to have diagnosed President Trump with both a malignant narcissistic personality disorder and a specific diagnosis of dementia, despite having never been in the same room as him, let alone actually treated him in any way. And Piers exposed the fact that this guy may be, in fact, operating from a political basis rather than a purely scientific and ethical one. Let's take a look at this clip.
Your view is what about Donald Trump's cognitive current abilities?
Right. The man is not compos mentis. Those who know him well say he wasn't the same man he was 4 years ago. But I believe that he is showing signs of dementia. A lot of doctors are saying that now. Dr. Vin Gupta has been saying it. And the nature of dementia is it doesn't get better. It doesn't stay the same. It gets worse. And the rate of decline accelerates. Now I think he's not the same man he was 4 weeks ago. We're watching his decline in real time accelerate. And it's
all right, we already have to pause here because now he's already not the same man he was 4 weeks ago. You don't know that. And listen, I actually think that in an ideal world, we would have a maximum age on the presidency and it would be lower than Donald Trump's current age. I do believe he is too old to be president in an objective, like nonpartisan standard, but obviously after President Biden, he's not, because he's a couple years younger and certainly more energetic than Biden was, especially at the last 2 years of his presidency. But what's so interesting here is you have this psychologist who, again, not a medical doctor, not a psychiatrist, because psychiatrists are actually forbidden by the Professional Ethics Association and an organization for psychiatrists, the APA, from diagnosing people they have never actually treated, which there's a pretty good reason for that. The politicization of medicine is very harmful. It's called the Goldwater Rule, the rule prohibiting this kind of diagnosis, because it specifically embarrassed the field of psychiatry when their diagnoses were weaponized during the 1964 presidential campaign against then-candidate Barry Goldwater. And it is not, in fact, appropriate to do that. And how you could possibly know this, that he's somehow materially deteriorated over the span of 4 weeks when you have literally no personal insight or access to him, that right there should have been a massive red flag that this guy is not being honest or straightforward. Because I absolutely think the other thing you have to reckon with is that, like, Trump's always been kind of crazy. He's always said and done crazy stuff. He's always done the weave in his public, whether he's compos mentis or not right now, you kind of have to grade that on the scale of how he always has behaved. And I actually think there is significant decline in terms of him just aging, and certainly that's some mental acuity, though I don't think he has dementia, because if you go back and watch the 2016 Republican presidential primary debates, which I remember briefly seeing at the time when I was like 18 or whatever, yeah, Trump was much more he was sharper, and he was a better speaker and more present in the moment and a little less rambly. And so obviously anytime anyone ages and it gets to such an advanced stage, they're going to lose a step. But that's a far cry from dementia. And this guy saying that he uh, has observed this over the last 4 weeks from what? From just a clip here you saw there or there? I mean, you can get a sense, as we all did of President Biden from that, of how they're doing in general, but I don't think you can observe a specific decline over a matter of weeks. So the trashiest members of Congress are finally getting exposed, and I'm absolutely here for it. TMZ is even now running a DC bureau, and with more skeletons being dragged out of people's closets, representatives from both parties are facing either expulsion or pressure to resign. From our partners at Kalshi, we can see that the Republican Corey Mills, who's accused of domestic violence, and the Democrat Sheila Seriphilus McCormick, who's accused of stealing $5 million in FEMA funds. Yeah, she allegedly stole emergency relief money. How lovely. Well, they are both among the favorites here to leave Congress before July. Sheila in particular is probably cooked because she's not only been indicted for these alleged crimes, but she was also found responsible by a bipartisan Ethics Committee investigation. Anyway, if you want to cash in on her or Mill's demise, you can do so on Kalshi using my promo code BRADP to place a free $25 prediction. We're coming up on the part where Piers absolutely cooks this man. Let's watch.
And it's really quite frightening because the type of dementia that we think he has, frontotemporal dementia,
oh my God, sorry to pause again, but like, again, you can't diagnose this person you've never met or treated with a specific type of dementia. That's wild.
Dementia. The main component is a lack of inhibition of aggressive behavior, as well as loss of memory and confusion. But because the frontal lobes, which are the brakes in our brain that give us judgment, that hold us back from acting out impulsively, that's the part that's deteriorating. So not only is he losing his capacity to understand and comprehend, but he's losing all internal inhibitions. And that's why he's behaving in this more erratic and actually self-destructive way. In this, say, tweeting against the Pope or cursing people out, that he's always been impulsive and aggressive.
I mean, he has
but
attacked.
Now it's starting to show in a more extreme way.
He attacked Pope.
Yeah, I mean, we should pause on that. He's losing his sense of inhibition on aggression and cussing. Like, bro, are we talking about the same person here? Was the sense of inhibition ever in the room with us? Like, that's why he's behaving erratically. Like, I'm not defending Trump's behavior, but like, that's not new, and it's not proof of dementia. This dude really is stretching. It's actually wild that you would put your professional reputation on display like this and double down on it all.
Pope Francis. He's attacked individuals throughout his entire life as an adult, both as a real estate tycoon, as a TV star, as a politician. There's nothing unusual about any of that. I spoke to him on the phone 2 months ago, and he sounded for about 10 minutes exactly the same as the Donald Trump I've known for 20 years. So I'm not sure that I've personally seen any evidence of this dementia you're talking about. But I guess my question for you would be, did you express the same public warnings about Joe Biden?
Well, I think the difference was they were hiding Joe Biden from us. So we really
weren't hiding him. You weren't hiding him from us.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. We're already coping. I find this hysterical because if you have two brain cells to rub together, you had to know this question was coming, sir. They were gonna ask you about Joe Biden. Any sort of responsible journalist or interviewer who is interviewing any sort of expert who's now claiming to have diagnosed Donald Trump's specific dementia down to the week-by-week development of it is gonna wanna maybe see if that person consistently called out President Biden and his clear signs of cognitive decline. Now, like, I would also say that you shouldn't have been diagnosing President Biden with anything specific, not having treated him or examined him. But you could still, first off, clearly that's not an issue for you, and you are willing to do that. So then you should have done it to President Biden as well. But secondly, like, you could still observe his clear cognitive decline, even if you're not giving a formal diagnosis of it, right? We all saw him calling out to dead people, babbling incoherently, wandering off, looking confused. Like, it really, going back to 2020 when he was even running for president, a lot of us were raising concerns about his clear mental decline in acuity compared to the Biden we had known for years and years as vice president and as senator. And yet you're telling us we had no idea. They hid him from us. To be fair to this guy, I guess they kind of did try to hide him from us. but it was still so obvious. And every time they had to let him out in public sometimes, and it typically did not go well. So there was plenty there for you to analyze, especially because you have so little scruples about how right, you're so unrestrained in your willingness to analyze people from afar that it really shouldn't have been an issue. And I just come back to the fact that this dude really didn't come up with a better excuse than this for the fact that he clearly did not have any of this energy for President Biden.
On television. I mean, I wrote a number of columns, for example, for the New York Post, in which I said there is clear evidence that Biden is suffering serious cognitive decline, which looks to me like the early onset of dementia. I did this repeatedly for 2 years. I'm not even a psychologist. But I'm just curious whether you ever publicly expressed any concerns about Biden's cognitive ability while he was president.
Well, I think that we missed that one, to be honest.
Oh my gosh. That really should be it right there. Wrap up the interview. Pack your bags. GTFO. Oops. My bad. We missed that one, guys. You think? And yeah, I'm sorry. If you missed that one, then you need to see yourself out of this conversation of diagnosing politicians and presidents with mental cognitive issues, because the audacity to be like, well, we missed that one on Biden, but here we are a couple years later, so confident down to the specificity of week by week development. You just have no credibility at that point. Like, you're just a partisan hack, and that's fine, I guess. It's a free country, but you officially have to stop pretending to be some sort of neutral expert analyst here if you've got this kind of track record. Like, I'd be kind of embarrassed to show my like this on TV if I knew I was blatantly, glaringly hypocritical on an issue and it could easily be exposed by a simple question. I probably wouldn't do one of the biggest TV shows on all of the internet on that exact subject from a reporter who is known to, or a host who's known to ask gotchas. That's crazy. Maybe that's just my self-preservation instinct there that this guy evidently does not have, because Piers wrapped up this interview by absolutely cooking this man, eating him up, and leaving no crumbs. Let's watch.
Be honest, especially if those of us who didn't have close contact with him. But
So you saw nothing. Just to be clear, you saw nothing about Joe Biden in public life during the last 2 years of his presidency, which, as a psychologist, made you think he had any cognitive issues whatsoever.
Well, I think the shocking moment was the debate.
Yeah, but before the debate.
Before that.
Well, unlike Trump, who's so out there with his cognitive deficits, as I'm saying, I think that his handlers were doing a very good job of keeping him out of the
Biden was talking to dead people in audiences. He was falling over all the time. He was talking complete gibberish half the time. He looked to me half zombie-like for the last 2 years of his tenure. I suppose the point I would make to you, Dr. Gardner, is it's hard to escape the suspicion that you are politically motivated rather than medically.
Mic drop moment. This is one of the reasons that whatever you think of how out of control the panels get sometimes and all of that, Piers really is doing something that you very rarely see in television or media today. He is bringing in people of note and influence. This guy has been all over the airwaves with his diagnoses of Trump from afar, and actually confronting and challenging them. And he does that to people across the ideological and political spectrum. You will find very little of that on Fox News or on MS Now or on partisan slop internet networks or podcasts where they just lob people softballs. But it's actually very important to hold people to account and to challenge the things they're saying, the influential narratives they're perpetrating onto the public, especially when there's blatant double standards and hypocrisy and glaring, inconsistencies there. So that's why I appreciate Piers and the segments that he's doing. And I think we need more journalists and hosts like him actually calling this kind of thing out.